The first thing I noticed wasn't the strangers in my kitchen. It was the silence when I walked in, the kind that wraps around your throat just before the punchline. There were four of them. Some friend from her yoga studio, a guy with a man bun and fake British accent, a girl in a metallic dress who kept saying vibes, and a coworker I vaguely recognized from a LinkedIn headshot she once showed me in bed. And her, standing at the head of the table like it was hers. On the table was the watch I gave her last Christmas, still in the box, untouched. I'd spent 2 weeks trying to get that limited edition, called favors, weighted lists. She hadn't even peeled the sticker off the face. It lay there like a paperweight. Didn't match my style, she said with a smirk, lifting her wine glass. The man bun guy laughed like she'd cracked a genius-level joke. I didn't laugh. I just nodded. Then I noticed the bracelet from New Year's, tucked into a ceramic bowl on the shelf behind her. The one I had custom made with the coordinates of the restaurant we had our first real date in, covered in dust. Next to it, the signed first edition I hunted down for her birthday, propped up backward on a stack of cookbooks like a coaster for her air diffuser. She didn't even try to hide it, didn't flinch, just turned to me, holding a half-empty bottle. Glass of wine? You look like you've had a day. She dragged the word out like she was narrating an ad. I said nothing, just watched her swirl her glass, pretending I didn't see the guest list or how she never told me they were coming or that she'd used the wine I bought last weekend, after asking if she needed anything and getting the usual, "I'm good, Daniel, God, stop hovering." I looked at her hand. She followed my eyes, then rolled hers. "Seriously?" "I'm taking the ring back," I said, voice flat, and she laughed, full-on diaphragm-level laughter. The man bun guy even chimed in. "Savage," he said, like we were on a game show and I'd just lost a round. That laugh, that condescending, amused, how adorable that you think you matter laugh, was the last thing I needed. Something snapped, but not loudly. Not like a slammed door or shouted name. It was quieter, cleaner, like a wire finally cut. I turned around and went straight to the bedroom. They kept talking behind me, joking, analyzing me like I was a new episode of a show they'd already spoiled. I opened her top drawer, lifted the tray, and took the ring out. No sneaking, no asking, just precision. She didn't follow. She didn't need to. She assumed I was bluffing. I could practically hear her smirk from the hallway. She thought I'd come crawling back after I cooled off. Again, like I did last May when she forgot my birthday and said it was my fault for not reminding her. But this wasn't that. I wasn't hurt. I was done. I walked back out, slipped the ring into my pocket without saying another word, and headed for the door. "You seriously gonna sulk about this?" she called out behind me. "It's not that deep." I didn't answer. Not then, not in the hallway, not as I stepped into the elevator and felt something strange, like clarity settling in. She had been laughing at me for years, not just tonight, not just in front of those people. With every gift she dismissed, every glance at another man across the table, every "I'm just being honest" jab disguised as emotional torture, it wasn't the ring she valued, it was the idea that she could control who gave it to her. And the most liberating thing in the world is realizing you can walk away from someone who never expected you to leave. By the way, more than 97% of you listening to these stories aren't subscribed, and I get it, I really do. But if you've ever had someone laugh in your face while you were trying to love them right, hit that subscribe button. It helps the team keep bringing these stories to life, and some revenge too. Back in my apartment, I emptied a shoebox onto the bed. Everything she'd ever given me, the gag gifts, the half-hearted apologies wrapped in tissue paper, the ironic t-shirts with feminist husband printed in Comic Sans. I laid each one out like crime scene evidence, and as I looked down at that pathetic pile of sarcasm and symbolism, I didn't feel sad. I felt focused. Tomorrow, I'd start cataloging. Not for memories, for profit. There was a time I thought her criticism came from a place of care. "You're better than this job, Daniel," she'd say, rubbing my back while her eyes stared past me at her phone. "You have potential. You just don't use it." The first time she said it, I took it as a compliment. The 10th time, it sounded like an indictment. By year 3, I realized it wasn't support. It was disappointment, disguised as guidance, fed to me in doses she thought I could swallow. She hated my car. "It's fine for now," she'd say with a wrinkle in her nose, "but don't you think it sends the wrong message?" She mocked my watch collection, said my taste in movies was so predictable, and told our mutual friends I was reliable, like that was some kind of insult. Once I surprised her with a weekend trip to a cabin. She scrolled through her phone the entire first night and said, "You really thought I'd enjoy this?" I thought I was being generous. Thoughtfulness, I used to believe, was a form of love. But she didn't see it that way. She saw it as obligation, a man performing, hoping for approval. So when I spread her gifts across the dining table, yes, the same table she used to stage her little dinner party, it wasn't nostalgia that tightened my chest. It was inventory, cold, deliberate. Every novelty mug with a passive-aggressive quote, every overpriced joke shirt she gave me because "you're always so serious, lighten up." I laid them out one by one like a lawyer building a case. There was the world's okayest husband mug from Valentine's Day 3 years ago. Still had the receipt inside. She thought it was hilarious. I drank from it twice, once when I had the flu, and once when all the other mugs were dirty. The shirt that said, "just here to pay the bills," still had the tags. The leather keychain shaped like a heart, bought at an airport, never used. She gave it to me after coming home from a solo spa weekend I hadn't been invited to. There was a pattern to all of it. Her gifts weren't about me. They were jokes on me. She'd wrap them in sarcasm and hand them over with a grin like she was rewarding a pet for not pissing on the rug. And like a fool, I smiled back every time, convincing myself that her way of showing love just looked different. Yeah, so does contempt. I arranged everything under a soft lamp for better lighting, photographed each item from multiple angles, cleaned the dust off the keychain, ironed the shirts, even wrote little descriptions. Lightly used novelty mug, excellent condition. Gag gift t-shirt, unworn, includes original tags. Then I opened a seller's account, one of those marketplaces for curated vintage stuff. She'd once bragged about using it to sell an old purse her ex gave her. "Got double what he paid," she said with a laugh. Fitting. As I uploaded the photos, it hit me. This wasn't grief. Grief is messy. This was clinical, efficient. I wasn't burning old memories, I was selling them, monetizing every hollow gesture, every slap in the face disguised as a gift. A collector messaged me 10 minutes after the keychain went live, said it was adorably cynical. I didn't respond. Instead, I packed the keychain in a box, added bubble wrap, and sealed it tight. When the printer spat out the shipping label, I couldn't help but smile. Her version of love came with strings. Mine now came with tracking numbers. By the end of the night, 12 items were live, 6 more queued, a few needed better lighting. I'd do that in the morning. I wasn't rushing this, because every minute I spent repackaging her affection was another minute she didn't realize what was coming. And I liked that. A lot. The next morning, she was still asleep when I opened the bedroom door. I didn't slam it. I didn't tiptoe either. Just walked in like a man collecting what's his. Her jewelry tray was sitting on top of her mirrored dresser, same place it always was, next to the scented candle I never lit, and the hand cream she used twice a year. I spotted the ring right away. Simple solitaire, white gold band. Nothing extravagant, but elegant, like I thought she was. I reached for it. "Are you seriously doing this?" Her voice behind me, groggy but sharp. She didn't even sit up in bed, just turned her head on the pillow and narrowed her eyes like I was inconveniencing her by existing. "You're actually going to steal it back like some bitter ex? Wow, that's pathetic." I turned my head just enough to meet her gaze. "It was a gift. I'm ungifting it." She scoffed, pulled the covers tighter around herself and mumbled, "Whatever helps you sleep at night, Daniel." She didn't ask why, she didn't care. No, correction, she thought she knew why. In her mind, I was probably licking my wounds, trying to regain some dignity after being humiliated in front of her disposable audience. She assumed this was about pride, but it wasn't. It was about clarity. She went back to sleep before I even left the room. That's how little she thought of it. Of me. It wasn't even worth staying awake for. I didn't take the ring to a pawn shop. That would have been too fast. Too easy. No, I cleaned it with the same toothbrush I used to scrub the grout in our shared bathroom, her idea of dividing chores. Polished it until it sparkled like the illusion it had represented for far too long. Then I pulled out my laptop, logged into the same account I'd made to sell her gag gifts, and listed the ring. High-resolution photos, all angles, under warm lighting. I described the clarity of the stone, the cut, the setting. No story, no emotion, just the specs. I set a reserve price high enough to make a point, low enough to sell fast. It took 3 days. On the third morning, I opened my email and saw the subject line. "Your item has sold." No champagne, no dopamine rush, just confirmation. And right below that email was another notification from an old college friend who still hadn't cleaned up their privacy settings. Emma tagged in a photo with that Nico the chef. The location? Rossi's. the rooftop Italian place, the one where I proposed. That was the part that made me pause. Not the guy, Nico, with his tattooed forearms and a chef's apron worn like a flex. Not even the fact that they were kissing in the photo. It was the candlelit table, the skyline backdrop, the champagne glass in her hand. Same seat, same view, same damn place. She'd recycled my moment. She didn't just betray me, she repurposed me. I didn't click the photo again, didn't go looking for more. What would be the point? There was nothing left to confirm. I already knew. Instead, I opened the ring sale confirmation and packaged it up with steady hands. I even included a thank you note to the buyer, not sarcastic, not bitter, just, may this bring more honesty to your life than it brought to mine. I dropped it at the post office on the way to work, took a different route, passed by a coffee shop I hadn't been to in months, got a cappuccino and sat near the window for 20 minutes. For once, I wasn't thinking about how she'd spin things. I was thinking about what else I could remove and sell. There's something deeply satisfying about bubble wrap, the way it crackles under pressure, seals up the past in these little plastic air pockets, like confessions muffled in cellophane. I started with the novelty bookends. Ceramic pineapples because she thought it matched your vibe. My vibe, apparently, being something between a kitschy bartender and a guy too afraid to say he hates ceramic fruit. They sold within 12 hours of going live. Some home decor blogger snatched them up and messaged me. These are adorable. Yeah, adorable. Next, the blazer, the one she bought during that weekend trip to Austin. She picked it out, swore it made me look like a man who owns things, not just borrows them. Then spent every formal event mocking how I wore it, said it fit me like an apology. I tried tailoring it once. She laughed the moment I walked out of the closet. Gone. $48. Listed it as gently insulted, never loved. The signed vinyl took a little longer. A first press of a band I never cared about, but she did. Back when she thought loving something loudly meant making me listen to it until I pretended it mattered. I never opened the sleeve. She thought that was respectful. Truth was, I didn't want to pretend one more time. I found a buyer who actually loved the band, said it completed his collection. I didn't write back, just printed the label, wrapped it like I meant it, and dropped it off with the rest. My apartment turned into a shipping center. Every surface was covered in boxes, each one a little memory, a little jab, a small ritual undone. The shirt that said, "Professional husband, amateur listener," sold. The desk organizer shaped like a brain, gone. The funny oven mitts with swear words printed on them, out of my life and on their way to Idaho. By Thursday, the ping of sales started to blur. I'd refresh the dashboard and watch red dots turn green. Payment received, shipping confirmed, review left, 5 stars, most of them. Then one buyer messaged me, "You okay parting with this much?" I stared at the screen for a second, then typed, "It's overdue." And it was. This wasn't retail therapy. It wasn't a bonfire of vanity. It was reclamation. Every item that left my door made room. In my apartment, in my head, in my spine. Because when you're constantly edited by someone who thinks your usefulness is tied to their amusement, you forget what taking up space feels like. And now, bit by bit, I was getting that space back. I started timing myself. How fast could I clean, wrap, and label? Could I get the next 3 shipped before noon? Efficiency became the point, a game I could win, because everything else with her had been rigged. Emotional shell games, sarcasm dressed as charm, compliments laced with rewrites of who I was allowed to be. But this, I controlled. I didn't blast music, I didn't pour whiskey, I didn't even cry. I just worked, quietly, systematically. And with every sealed box, I felt lighter. I kept a ledger, not for the money, although it was starting to add up. It wasn't about profit, it was about removal. Every package was a deletion, every sale a sentence crossed out, every thank you arrived safely, another thread cut. I didn't know what I was building toward yet, not exactly, but I knew what I was dismantling, and I liked the sound of it. By the end of week 2, my PayPal balance looked like a garage sale gone suspiciously right. The vinyl had sparked a bidding war. The ceramic nonsense was in high demand. Even the ironic throw pillow that said Nap King sold for $30. Some woman said her boyfriend needed the humility. Good. I hoped it haunted him. I transferred every cent into a new checking account, not my main one, not one with her name ever attached to it, just clean digital space, tabula rasa with a routing number, no fingerprints. The banker was young, maybe 25, hair too neat, eyes too eager. "Planning something special?" he asked as I filled out the cashier's check request. "Something deliberate," I said without looking up. He smiled like I'd just hinted at a proposal. I didn't correct him. Amount, $2,275, the exact monthly rent for her apartment. I didn't need to guess. She'd reminded me at least 100 times over the years. Do you even realize how much I pay for this place? She'd snap every time she bought another overpriced wall mirror or replaced furniture that worked perfectly fine. You want to include a memo? The banker asked. No memo. I watched him feed the numbers into his system, watched the machine spit out a slip of paper that would mean everything and nothing, because that check wasn't a gift. It was a countdown. I folded the check into a plain envelope, no return address, no note, no smudge of perfume or scribbled closure, just to Terrence Knox, Maplewood Residential Properties, Unit 6B. I sealed the envelope and pressed the corners flat, not with anger, with precision. On the way to the post office, I passed a flower vendor on the corner, the same one she used to stop at, buying bouquets for herself and making me carry them back to the car like I had something to do with the gesture. I thought for half a second about including flowers in the envelope, something poetic, cruel, but no, that would make it emotional, and this wasn't that. This was math. I mailed the envelope. No tracking. Let it arrive like a miracle. Let her think the universe was rewarding her for being the woman she imagined herself to be. I pictured her opening it, her grin, the satisfied laugh, the way she'd probably flip her hair and text that chef guy some smug little "see, he still loves me" screenshot. Let her post a story about it. Let her dine out on the mystery. Because here's the secret. I wasn't funding her survival. I was buying silence, calm before the storm, rent paid for 1 month, a soft landing pad before the floor gave out. You see, revenge isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just a cashier's check in a white envelope, sent without a single word, and when it cashes, the fuse begins to burn. Her place always looked like a Pinterest board in denial, faux boho rugs, abstract wall art that meant nothing, and lighting fixtures she called statement pieces, but never once dusted. It was the kind of apartment you showed off, not lived in. And now it had an audience. She'd invited her friends over again, the metallic dress girl, another guy with the emotional intelligence of a vape pen, and some fitness blogger who addressed every woman as queen while checking his own reflection in the microwave door. Wine poured, laughter echoing off the granite countertops. She floated around the living room like a host on a reality show, talking about her clean break, her new chapter, and her upgrade. The new man, Nico, the tattooed chef from the rooftop photo, wasn't there. Too busy, she said. But that didn't stop her from referencing him every 10 minutes like he was a Michelin star she'd personally earned. Nico says I've got a palate for nuance. Nico's taking me to that place downtown where you can only eat with your hands. As if this guy, this human spatula, had replaced not just me, but everything. Then there was a knock. The landlord, Terrence Knox, clipboard under one arm, khakis so stiff they creaked when he walked. He didn't step in, just leaned through the doorway with that dry smile landlords wear when pretending to care. Just wanted to confirm, you're squared away this month. Check came in, no sender listed. Bit of an unexpected blessing, huh? She lit up like a chandelier. Oh, that, she said, flipping her hair. Yeah, I figured it was, one of those things. He nodded, scribbled something on the clipboard. Just confirming. We'll see you next month. She closed the door like she'd just accepted an award. The second it clicked shut, she turned to her friends with a smugness so thick it needed its own zip code. He must really love me. The guy with the mirror fixation clapped like she'd just recited a poem. You're magnetic, babe. I mean, she laughed, I get it. Who wouldn't want a second chance? Later that night, she posted a photo, a candlelit glass of wine, a delicate handwritten thank you card she wrote to herself, captioned, "Some people just can't let go." 3 emojis, 1 wink. Daniel saw it, didn't blink, didn't zoom, just stared for a moment at the screen. Then, without fanfare, he opened the settings on the seller's account, the one where he'd listed, packaged, and sold every remnant of her false affection, and deleted it. No backup, no archive, no hesitation. Gone. Her smug little post would float in the digital ether, collecting likes from enablers and emojis from people too shallow to see the irony. Because the thing about people like her, they can't tell the difference between a gift and a warning. She still thought she was winning, still thought the ring, the rent, the silence meant something romantic, as if the man she'd mocked and minimized would stick around just to orbit her new little world. She didn't realize the check wasn't a lifeline, it was a leash she'd already run to the end of. And Daniel? He was already walking the other direction, not chasing, not looking back, just making room. The champagne energy didn't last long. After the rent was paid and her ego had soaked in just enough compliments, things shifted. Slowly at first. Nico, the great culinary philosopher she wouldn't shut up about, stopped texting back so fast. First it was a few hours, then a full day, then, sorry babe, service was trash at the restaurant, as if cell towers in the city were optional now. She brushed it off, of course, told herself he was busy. She liked independent men, she said, not needy like Daniel. She repeated that line often, like a mantra, but the dinner slowed down. No more surprise flowers, no more chef's table seats. One night she called him, straight to voicemail, so she called again, same. The next morning she posted a quote about focusing on yourself over a selfie in filtered sunlight. A few of her girlfriends liked it. One left a heart emoji. The rest, silent. The faucet in her bathroom started leaking again, same one Daniel used to fix without being asked. The utility bill crept higher. She skipped it, figured she'd pay it next week. Then the heating went out. She emailed the landlord but got no reply, until he called. Rent's due by the 1st, Terrence said flatly. No payments come in. She blinked at the screen. Last month it came through automatically. No, he said. You had an anonymous cashier's check, one-time thing. This month's wide open. Oh, silence. You still good for it? Yeah, she lied. Just been transitioning between accounts. New job, new pay schedule, you know how it is. I'll need it by the 5th, he said. After that, we post. She hung up and stared at her phone like it had betrayed her. The ring of panic was still faint. Not sirens, just static, but it was there. She texted Daniel. Just one line. Hey, was that check from you? Can we talk? Read receipt? None. Delivered? Yes. Nothing came back. She tried again the next night. A longer message this time. Apologetic, but vague enough to keep her pride intact. Something about closure and appreciating what you did. Nothing. She checked his Instagram. Gone. His email? Bounced. His old coworker she still followed? Posted a goodbye cake from Daniel's last day. New job. Different city. And that's when the static started to roar. She pulled open drawers, looked for anything left. Old cards, receipts, some symbolic tether to prove he still existed in her world. But everything was gone. Not just moved, removed. Like he'd ghosted not just her, but the physical space they'd shared. Like she dreamed him into existence and woke up mid-sentence. So she bluffed, called Terrence back. Listen, she said, forcing a laugh. Just a small delay. I've got a wire transfer coming in on the 7th. Can we hold off a few days? No can do, he said. Policy's firm. You've had 30 days. But last month wasn't from you. Click. The door buzzer rang the next morning. She padded out in sweats and bedhead, opened the door without looking. A folded notice stuck in the frame. Eviction. 30 days. Postmarked, stamped, official. She held it like it might burn her, like staring at it long enough might make the ink run or the paper disappear. Her phone buzzed in her hand, notification from her bank, balance low. The foundation beneath her wasn't cracking. It was gone. She waited 3 days before calling again, hoping maybe the system glitched, that Terrence had missed a deposit, that somehow Nico would surprise her with a grand gesture, rent payment tucked into a love note, a second round of champagne redemption. But Nico had gone full ghost, and the system hadn't glitched. The heating was still broken. Her phone bill bounced. A second warning email blinked red in her inbox, and the eviction notice, still pinned to the inside of her front door like a punchline she couldn't tear down. She dialed Terrence again, this time from the couch, her voice brittle with forced calm. Hi, it's Emma again. Listen, maybe I misunderstood last time, but I thought rent had been covered. He sighed. Emma, it was. Last month, one check. Right, she said, fingers gripping the throw blanket like it could hold her together. I thought it was recurring. It wasn't, I told you that. It was a single cashier's check, no return address, no instructions, just your rent amount to the cent. A pause. Can I ask who it was from? Terrence rustled papers. Hang on. Yeah, it says Daniel Whitmore. Her mouth went dry. Her heart thudded once, hard, like a dropped hammer. Oh, she said, voice thin. Another pause. You know him? Terrence asked. No, she lied. Then, quieter. Not really. She hung up before he could say more. She sat on the couch for a long time, eyes unfocused, staring into the muted TV screen like it might clarify what just happened. The silence felt hostile now, like the apartment itself was judging her. Then something pulled her to the bedroom. She opened her top drawer, the one she used to keep the keepsakes. Her good memories, she once called them, when explaining why she didn't like clutter. She'd always been particular about what stayed and what didn't. Only the meaningful stuff, she used to say. But now, it was empty. She blinked. She opened the other drawers, the closet, the box under the bed. She checked behind the shoe rack, inside the linen bin, even in the old coffee tin where she used to hide gift cards. Nothing. No leather keychain, no books he'd gifted, no framed photos, no cards, no novelty mugs, no ring box, no bracelet box, no pineapples. Gone. Everything he ever gave her had disappeared, not by accident, not misplaced, removed. She stumbled back into the living room and picked up her phone. Call Daniel. Call failed. Blocked. She tried again, then from a different number. Still nothing. She opened Instagram, typed in his name. Nothing. Facebook? Deleted. Email? Bounce. She wasn't looking for reconciliation. Not really. She just needed something. A tether. A weak thread she could tug and say, see, he still exists. I didn't make all of it up. He didn't mean it. But there was nothing left. Not even a digital fingerprint. Daniel wasn't just gone. He'd erased himself from her world so cleanly, so methodically, that she was starting to question if he'd ever been real to begin with. And that was the first moment, truly the first, where her chest tightened. Not from shame, from fear. Because when someone who once loved you that much decides to forget you on purpose, it means you never understood what you had, not even close. The breakup with Nico wasn't dramatic. That was the worst part. He didn't yell, didn't curse, didn't even lie. He just texted her one morning, hey, you're great, but I'm not looking for anything complicated right now. Complicated, that was the word. She reread it 6 times. The last man who cooked for her, who brought her tiramisu at midnight, who said she deserved more than takeout and mediocrity, boiled her down to complicated like she was a customer service ticket he didn't want to resolve. She sent 3 texts back, one cool, one biting, one vulnerable. No response. His profile picture disappeared by evening. With the rent unpaid, eviction scheduled, and utilities threatening shutoff, she packed a duffel bag and crashed at her friend Marcy's apartment on the west side. Marcy, who once called her the blueprint, let her sleep on a futon next to the cat's litter box. The first night, she brought wine and snacks. The second night, silence. By the 5th, Marcy was asking if she'd had any job interviews lined up. By the 7th, she was sighing every time the doorbell rang. It didn't last. Emma left after a snide comment about dishes and energy, stormed out like she had somewhere better to be. She didn't. She applied for marketing jobs, half-hearted cover letters, resumes full of soft skills and inflated titles, the kind of fluff she used to mock in others. No one called. Her favorite cafe stopped giving her the employee discount she'd wrangled through flirting. The stylist who used to squeeze her in suddenly had full books for 3 months. And the mutuals, the yoga crew, the rooftop party people, the ones who used to flame her comment sections with fire emojis and queen, weren't liking her posts anymore. Worse, they weren't even watching. She went out one night just to feel visible, put on her best screw you dress, the one Daniel used to say made her look like she was about to take over a boardroom and burn it down. She tried to get into a private lounge she used to frequent. The bouncer looked at her like she was trying to sell Girl Scout cookies at a strip club. Inside the bar across the street, the bartender pretended not to recognize her. And maybe he didn't. Maybe she really had faded that fast. Then it happened. She was walking down 6th looking for coffee she couldn't afford when her eyes caught something in a pawn shop window. A ring. Nothing flashy, but familiar. Brutally familiar. White gold. Simple setting. Small chip in the band on the underside. She knew that chip. She used to run her thumb over it absent-mindedly when she wore it. It was the ring. She froze. Inside the shop, a bored teenage clerk was wiping the glass. He didn't notice her. No one did. For a long moment, she stood there, staring through the reflection of herself at what used to be a promise. Not a diamond. A decision. That ring was the last thing he took from her hands. And now it was just another object in a dusty row of failed dreams, sitting between a broken watch and a camera no one wanted. She didn't go in. She didn't ask the price. She didn't take a photo. She just walked away, faster than necessary, like the sidewalk might swallow her if she lingered too long. And in that moment, for the first time, she stopped being angry. She was just embarrassed. Not because she lost the ring, but because she finally understood. Daniel hadn't destroyed her. He just removed her from his story, and no one noticed she was gone. She stood outside the building with a single suitcase and a silence she couldn't explain, not the dramatic kind, not the trembling, cinematic sort, just vacant. Like whatever fire used to spark behind her eyes had long since gone out, and now she was just standing there because she didn't know where else to be. The building looked smaller now, or maybe she felt smaller. The brick facade that once felt so boutique chic now just looked weathered. The potted plant near the entrance, once a wilting joke Daniel used to water because no one else will, was gone, replaced by a newer, greener one. As she reached for the door, someone else opened it from the inside. A woman, mid-30s, casual sundress, holding a canvas tote and a cold brew. "Sorry," the woman said with a warm, instinctive smile, holding the door open like it was her building now. Because it was. Emma hesitated. I used to live here," she said, blinking too much. The woman just nodded politely and stepped aside. Emma lingered in the entryway. The air smelled different, cleaner. No hint of the lavender diffuser she used to overuse. No trace of her. On the mailboxes, new names. On the door to her old unit, a nameplate, different font, different name, not Daniel, not Emma, just strangers now. It felt final in a way that the eviction didn't. This wasn't being pushed out. This was being replaced, painlessly, efficiently, as if the life she built inside those walls had been a temporary file, deleted, overwritten, never backed up. She thought of calling him again. For what? She didn't know. Apology, closure, permission to mourn? But her phone screen was blank. No missed calls, no messages, no notifications, not even spam. She scrolled through her contacts, found his name, well, what used to be his name, just D. She tapped it, hovered her thumb over the message icon. Nothing. Blocked. Still. Forever. She opened his old Instagram. Still gone. Searched LinkedIn. Dead end. Google. Only old business listings, half of them outdated. He'd scrubbed himself clean. A man who once filled her apartment with plans and notes and quiet loyalty now lived in a world she couldn't access. She turned slowly, suitcase wheels scraping against concrete, and walked back down the short flight of stairs. The city buzzed around her, cars honking, dogs barking, people shouting into phones like their words mattered. But none of it was for her. No one recognized her. No one cared. She walked past the cafe where she used to brag about her weekend plans, past the nail salon that always squeezed her in, past the gym she never used but name-dropped in conversations to sound busy. Nobody waved. Nobody looked twice. For the first time in years, she was just another person in the crowd, not someone's girlfriend, not the hostess with the perfect apartment, not the woman who always had a backup plan, just weightless, anonymous. As she crossed the street, a bus roared by and kicked up dust. She didn't flinch. She looked at her phone one last time, hoping, praying for anything. A message, a mistake, a window cracked open. But there was nothing, only the clock ticking forward without her. She exhaled, long, slow, then kept walking, not home, just away.